Welcome, everyone. Happy Earth Day. I am Joe Arvai. I have the distinct pleasure of serving as the director of the Wrigley Institute for Environmental Studies here at the University of Southern California. What a pleasure it is to hold that position, and what a pleasure it is to see you on Earth Day. We're here for Climate Forward 2022. This is the first time that I've got to do this in person. As a result of the pandemic, I've done two of these before, both over Zoom. They were wonderful. I'm so excited and delighted to see like real three-dimensional human beings in the audience, so thank you. Climate Forward is in its fourth year, if you can believe it. It's become our signature annual partnership with our good friends at the Center for the Political Future here in the USC Dornsife College. The annual Climate Forward conference really is about exploring politically and economically realistic solutions to the challenges that are in front of us with respect to climate change and then sustainability more broadly. In all of the Climate Forwards that came before this one, we've brought together political figures, academics, scientists, policy and industry experts, and a whole host of others to really get at some of the core issues that are driving our debates about climate change, and then ultimately, I think, are going to drive us toward meaningful climate solutions. Some of the visitors that we've had before join us are former Secretary of State and now our climate envoy, John Kerry, Governors Christine Todd Whitman and Michelle Lujan Grisham from New Mexico, Tom Steyer while he was running for president, Congressman Garrett Graves, state senators, people from corporate America, and a host of others. This year, Climate Forward, the theme is energy. We're here to talk about energy as something that we all need as fundamentally a human right, but also the energy to drive change forward. I'm going to introduce our panelists in a second, but before we get to them, first of all, let me welcome you. And then secondly, if you'll allow me, let me thank members of my team, because I don't think I'll get a chance to do this, and Bob's team as well. So Kami, certainly Bob himself, Erica, on my team, Jessica, Amber, Catherine, and a whole host of others, Alex, who work behind the scenes to pull an event off like this. These are incredibly difficult. People lose sleep, I lose hair. These are like, they're worth it, but they're challenging. And those are the folks that are the real heroes behind the scenes. I just get to wear a suit and do this. So thank you to all of you for really pulling this together. Yes. And then with that, I'm going to actually make our first introduction, and that is of our president, USC President Carol Folt. She is the 12th president of the University of Southern California and holds the Robert C. Packard President's Chair. Those of you who know her knows that she puts students first. She's a collaborative academic leader. She's a life scientist. She has faculty appointments in marine and environmental biology, where I also have a faculty appointment, and civil and environmental engineering, and then also in preventative medicine. President Folt is committed to the pursuit of academic excellence and innovation throughout our university. Among her many priorities, though, Dr. Folt brings much needed leadership in the area of sustainability. I see a lot of my President's Working Group on Sustainability colleagues here, and that's a group that was pulled together by our president to really move us forward. So thank you, Madam President, for doing that. President Folt earned her bachelor's degree in aquatic biology and a master's degree in biology from the University of California, Santa Barbara. Hold that against her, I guess. And her doctorate in ecology from the University of California, Davis. Also, what? But anyway, given your background, you are always welcome at the Wrigley Institute. We look forward to seeing you out there. And with that, let me introduce President Carol Folt.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Thank you, Joe. It's the last day on this week of celebration, and it's so great to see you all here. And, welcome to the 2022 Climate Forward Conference. Happy Earth Day to everybody, and we know we have a lot of people joining us remotely. I too want to thank everyone who has been working so hard on this week's events, and they've been wonderful and inspiring and bringing a different piece into every event, from the arts to the science to the data to the people to the places to the communities to the globe. It's pretty exciting. And thank you also, Joe, just leading our Wrigley Institute for Environmental Studies. This year, they incorporated the USC Dornsife Environmental Studies program to strengthen environmental education at USC. And they couldn't have a dean of Dornsife any more dedicated to it than we have in Amber Miller. So everything is aligning in a really, really important way. And I've actually been told that 17,000 students enrolled in sustainability related courses, although we're going to try to get better at counting that. And we have plans to grow it. Our research, our sustainability courses, all of that to really increase. Just in March, Wrigley launched three new research centers working across disciplines. I mean, I'm an environmental scientist. Look at where I hold my degrees and where I hold my research positions: the medical school, arts and sciences, and in the engineering school. And that is because the work is highly interdisciplinary. And that's what you're all getting ready to do. You are becoming that. It won't be nearly as hard for you as it was for me when I was going through trying to do that kind of work. And we want to make it so the barriers are gone. We want to make the barriers easy in our local communities. All of these things are about accelerating, making it easier, and therefore making a lot more really great progress. I also want to thank Mick Dalrymple, USC's first Chief Sustainability Officer. He sure hit the ground running, I'm just going to tell you. And it's been wonderful because we have an amazing community of committed people. And he will be helping to spearhead all of our plans to be zero waste by 2028 in time for the Summer Olympics. It's a big deal. You know, as you're talking about it, across the globe, this Earth Day is named Invest in Our Planet. And it calls for people taking the courage to make the decisions and the changes that are needed now, together with a real sense of urgency and intentionality. So I'm going to stop for a minute and just go back and say my own life as an environmental scientist probably began at the first Earth Day in 1972. I remember it, and I was inspired by it, and it built a lifelong passion to me. I think as a result of seeing all of you, the hope I get from everyone, I actually got up really early this morning. I started texting the people that I've been working with for years on the environment, the ones that went to the first climate change symposium in the 90s, the people that are out fighting, the friends I have that have worked in rainforests and could cry every day, but don't stop working. They still keep doing it. And I think we all are feeling that there is a second chance. We can take this sustainability movement with all of you. We can reinvigorate it. So all that work has not been for nothing, but if we don't do it faster, broader, more inclusive, we won't be able to do it. But we're all in, but we're looking for all of you to really push it forward. So I think I've been feeling that here. You know, maybe I get to see a really good perspective, but no one's coming to me and saying, I don't want to do sustainability. But you know, that's actually it's not even that funny. People used to say stuff like that. They aren't saying it. And when I came here, I was telling someone that my day of my inauguration, which is about 2.5 years ago, there were two protests. One was protesting VKC. We changed that name. It's really important. The other was a protest about the environment, and I got to be a part of it. It wasn't at me, but it was at all of us working together. And it was that partnership that made me realize, you just scratched the surface. There were already thousands of people here wanting to work on the environment. And in the last 2 years, that community has come together in a really wonderful, wonderful way, taking some really great actions. You know, we have the whole tree project that has been coming out of Dornsife, which I think is a really wonderful project, and more of them. Excuse me, you can slow down a little bit. I think I don't know who's helping me here. I'm going way off script, so they're having a hard time figuring where I am. You can go back up again. Can you just, no, go down. Sorry. Keep going. Keep going. Keep going. Here, perfect, thank you. I'm very bad to use a teleprompter because it gives me a prompt, but then often I go off, and so thank you. I love my team that helps me. But I think these things that you've been seeing this week are really important, but the ones that are ongoing are equally important, and I think Dean Miller will talk about it. But what we launched this week is probably the biggest challenge of all, and that is what the group is calling Assignment Earth. The name was coined by the Presidential Working Group on Sustainability, which we brought together just 2 years ago. And Assignment Earth makes a lot of sense for people at a university. It also reminds you that if you're graduating, you still have assignments. This is one that's going to take all of us for a long time, constantly working towards it. But it will give us a better way to sort of bring our things together and talk about what USC really is trying to do. Because we all believe that we have to get it right here. And if we can get it right here and we get it right in our neighborhoods, and in fact, if we can get it right in Los Angeles, we actually have a chance of getting it right in the world. So it matters a lot. And we're really, really excited about all of that. Yet even as we here and people across the world celebrate Earth Day and focus on critical sustainability initiatives, I think it's important that we realize that time is not on our side. You know, I'm going to paraphrase Rachel Carson, and I know many of you will know everything that she ever said. But she said, humanity is part of nature, and our war against nature is inevitably a war against ourselves. And we read a lot of stories about that war. Right here in California, we're seeing it, climate change leading to drought, to deadly fevers, melting ice caps, burning forests, you know, the devastation of life, nurturing ecosystems, and serious bias and disparities in our communities. So we know the planet is absolutely telling us, and it's telling us now more than it did even 10 years ago. It is telling us. I think people in our communities are telling us, and of course our hearts are telling us, that's why you're all here, that we have to take actions now. We have to be working towards a more sustainable balance with our climate and our oceans and our forests and our creatures that share our planet. So turning that great rhetoric into action has to be real here at home. Now you have remarkable panelists. They're going to talk about how you make it real. And just going around the tables out there, I could really see it, because there is no action too small or any dream too big right now for the way we look at the environment. So we get a lot of encouragement when we see people taking action. USC is moving ahead on sustainable energy. And, you know, you all know we set pace to be carbon neutral by 2025. I think when I came here just 2 years ago, we were saying 2035. In 2 years, to make that kind of change and believe we can do it shows you can really accelerate. We're also committed to a fossil-free investment strategy, another accomplishment driven a lot by our students, faculty, and staff, and it's already happened. I don't know that anyone thought it would happen that fast, but it's moved forward. We also went solar at the Galen Center, following the model of the Wrigley Institute, which went solar in 2016. So they were our trailblazer, and there's a lot coming in that area. We also want to drive positive change in other aspects of sustainability. And here's just 2 examples launched in the last 12 months. The first one was the Urban Trees Initiative, and it is wonderful partnership. Amber and her team have been driving that to create green canopy in areas with sparse shade and poor air. Interestingly, I learned from our people working there, you know, many people, an elderly person could get off a bus in a lot of our neighborhoods on a hot day, and just trying to get home without having heat exhaustion could be impossible because of the lack of shade. It's such a big deal. They've already completed the first phase in August, and they've already been working with Northeast Trees to plant 200 trees in the Ramona Gardens nearing our health science campus. Phase 2 is zooming ahead. I mean, it's a really wonderful project going now out to Boyle Heights and to City Terrace and the University Park area. So that worked. And it was a partnership. The second one is the partnership with Alta Sea and the Port of Los Angeles. Again, and talk about a great pairing, Wrigley, Port of Los Angeles. I mean, the amazing things that can happen there. And we just went there just a couple weeks ago to celebrate the opening of USC's new aquaculture research led by Dr. Sergey Nugin of USC Dornsife again, and that is working on the blue economy. His project actually began out at Catalina Island at Wrigley. Now he's taken it down there, and they are growing kelp at, I'm going to tell you, it is record speed. I've never seen anything like that. So, there's just wonderful things coming forward, and the students can all be a part of them. Our faculty and staff can be. But Alta C is another one that only happens because we do it together with other universities, with the city, and with the neighbors. So this has been a pretty exciting week, and I think we're looking at these. Acceleration should be the word. No longer what's going to take 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. We just have to be impatient with it. Just don't accept it. We just keep moving and keep trying. And I'm just really pleased to say that I feel the support for that, certainly with the community, but I feel it with the board. I feel it with all the people working in all our operations. There is nobody telling me slow down on sustainability. So we ought to take that and run right through that door. And I think you're all going to really help us keep that momentum. So the Wrigley Institute, Dornsife, the amazing Center for the Political Future have been great points that really fuel it. That's what you need. You need people to keep it going. And we have to do a lot of this. Will require us as humans and as citizens if we're really going to accomplish a science. It won't just happen if we hope. It's going to really take very intentional work. So my last quote is Annie Dillard. I'm sure many of you have read Annie Dillard's wonderful work, but I love this one because she says, how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. So you're doing a pretty good job right now. We have to spend our days doing what we believe for our lives, and that's the only way we're going to get there. So keep your days pushing to save our only planet. That's this one. It's the only one that we have, and we need to keep that planet so it can sustain not only us, but all other forms of life. So thank you so much. Happy Earth Day to everybody, and fight on.
Thank you, President Folt, for all you've done on this campus in just 2 years. By the way, you're the most honest person about using a teleprompter I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen a lot of politicians use them. I'm Bob Schrum, the director of the Center for the Political Future. We are proud on Earth Day once again to sponsor this conference with the Wrigley Institute and now with Joe Arvai. I'm old enough that I was at the first Earth Day in New York City in Central Park 52 years ago. In fact, I wrote one of the speeches. But I do have to make something clear that you can all see. Unlike Joe, conference or not, I can't afford to lose any hair. I'm up here with the honor of introducing a very special person and leader, the Dean of Dornsife, Amber Miller. She's an educational visionary. She set out to reinvigorate an ideal she calls the academy in the public square, with the university exploring in informed and civil terms the most urgent questions of our time, not only on campus, but in ways that influence and advance the dialogue beyond the university's gate. Nowhere, in her view, is that more vital than on the issue of climate. Dean Miller is a physicist who was focused on the origins and even the first nanoseconds of the universe. It always blows my mind when I think about it. Now as dean, she focuses on how to lift up higher education and how the academy can help light the path to a better future for our country and our world. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a genuine privilege to introduce Dean Amber Miller.
Thank you. I promise to be brief because I know we really want to get to the panelists who really have the most exciting things to say. The president and I share a passion for leveraging the incredible talent that lives within our universities to address this most urgent challenge of climate change. And the most important thing we can do to head off the worst impacts is to get on top of accelerating the energy transition. universities around the world, including USC, are working hard on creating the scientific and technological innovations required to underpin new enormous changes. But we have the technology in hand to do a lot more than we're doing already. And that just means we need to get a whole lot smarter about how we utilize those technologies that are already out there. When I moved back to California almost 6 years ago, we bought electric cars and we got to work figuring out how to spec out a solar system for our house. Now, Bob mentioned that I'm an astrophysicist. One of my research group at Columbia was responsible for building the solar power system that flew on a high altitude balloon in Antarctica and had to work or the whole thing would fail. So I wasn't really that intimidated about speccing out my solar power system for my roof, but I'll tell you, it was complicated. It was a lot of work and it was expensive. And, I used to wonder why it is that every single roof in LA doesn't have a solar power system. Now I understand. It'll take us about 5 to 7 years to get the payback on it, but it'll be net positive. After that, it's all profit. But a lot of people aren't physicists. A lot of people are intimidated by speccing out a complicated system, and a lot of people don't have the money to put up front. So it got me thinking, why hasn't someone turned that around? How come there isn't a utility company or a city or a county or a company, a private company that says to every consumer in Los Angeles, tick this box if you own a house, we'll rent your roof, we will put the solar panels up, we'll buy the bulk equipment, we will take care of all of the speccing out and all of the fixing and all of the nonsense, and we'll give you a discount on your power. I don't know if it'll work. These panelists are probably two of the people in the world most capable of telling me whether that's all nonsense or not. But the one thing I do know is that we have to ask those kinds of questions because some of those things will work. And I don't know yet which ones they are. But if we don't get serious about not just leveraging our scientists, but really thinking about what are the political issues, what are the economic issues, what are the social issues, what are the behavioral issues that are impeding us from doing those kinds of things, from making it the default to have solar on every house, to having it be the minority of houses in this city where we get 300 days of sunshine a year that have solar on the rooftops. How do we get there? And that's what our Human Factors Initiative that we launched a couple of years ago is all about. It's all about engaging people like Bob and Mike from the Center of the Political Future, hiring people like Joe to really expand Wrigley, to really begin to ask these questions. How do we do what we can right now? How do we plow through the societal barriers to doing that? And how can we as a university be a much better partner to private companies, to utility companies, to cities, to counties? How can we get out there and help? So it's super exciting to me that today in our Climate Forward conference, we're starting with exactly that kind of a conversation with two superstars. And I don't get the pleasure of introducing them. I have to give that to Joe. But I will promise you that we have outstanding panelists today. I'm going to just say thank you for all of you in the room for coming, for all of you online for being here. And I'm sure we're going to have an outstanding set of panels. So thank you again and enjoy the show.
As with many things, I always ask, is this thing on? It's on, right? As with many things, we're already running over time, so I'm going to invite our panelists up, Mary Powell and Patty Poppe, to join me on the stage. I'm going to sit down if you don't mind, so I can put my reading glasses on and not fumble around too much. I'll make the introductions as quick as I can. I will start with Mary Powell. She is recognized as an energy visionary in the United States. In 2021, she became the CEO of Sunrun, the nation's leading home solar battery storage and energy services company. From 2008 to 2019, she served as president and CEO of Green Mountain Power in Vermont, where she positioned the company as a world leader for energy transformation and truly a world leader. If you read the story about Green Mountain, it is quite remarkable indeed. Under her leadership at Green Mountain, they were the first utility in the world to become a member of a B Corp or become a B Corp. If you don't know what a B Corp is, look it up. Also very incredible. And they really showed a commitment to using the power of their business as a force for good. And that sounds like a platitude, But B Corps are the real deal. So kudos to you at Green Mountain for doing that. She's received accolade after accolade. Fast Company, the New Yorker, New York Times. It's quite shameful, actually, how much attention you've gotten. I'm so jealous for her leadership on energy and climate change. So Mary Powell, welcome to Climate Forward. Patty Poppe is the CEO of San Francisco-based PG&E. She joined PG&E in 2021 after 5 years of serving as president and CEO of CMS and its subsidiary Consumers Energy in Michigan. It's actually in Michigan where Patty and I first met. And this is not a platitude. I can tell you honestly that she was and still is the most community-focused CEO I've ever met. And I worked 10 years in a business school. I've never seen anyone quite like Patty. For those of you who are wondering, the Wall Street Journal calls her job the hardest CEO job in the world, and for good reason. Kudos to you for all the work you're doing. Her rise to the position of CEO is emblematic of both her leadership acumen, her hard work within the energy sector before she took over as CEO of CMS and of course PG&E. She's done everything in the energy business. Her background is in engineering. She's worked as the VP for distribution, energy for engineering and transmission. She's been the VP for customer experience, rates and regulation, customer operations. She is that kind of CEO who sort of worked her way up in a company. Also a very remarkable story. She has her master's degree in management from Stanford, also not holding that against her here, and a bachelor's degree from Purdue in engineering. Patty, welcome to Climate Forward. Okay, so the panel today is called The Future of American Energy. So I'm just going to throw this open to both of you and ask you, given what you know of the energy industry and from where you sit in your respective companies, what is the future of energy in the United States? An easy question to start with.
Okay. Anyway, first of all, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. And I so appreciated the remarks of Dean Miller and President Folt. Just really, really powerful. And I'm honored to be here. And really, again, I'm here because I actually do want to talk about action. I really want to talk about action. I have always seen, actually, this is a pretty easy and straightforward question for me, because I have been obsessed with sustainability for as long as I can remember. My first recollection of caring about it was, I think I was like 6 years old. And I remember being in the back of my parents' Buick, and we were a Buick station wagon. And I think we were headed to Michigan from Manhattan, which is where I grew up. And I remember looking out the window and just thinking to myself, like, there were so many cars. There was so much exhaust. There was so much litter. There were so many people. And I remember thinking first to myself, like, oh dear. Like I had heavy thinking for 6 years old in many ways. It's a long story, but you know, and I remember saying something to my mom, like, how is this gonna go? Like, how's this gonna end? Like, you know, because I was like, people multiply, population's growing, and I don't remember the answer she gave. I just remember it wasn't very comforting, whatever it was she said. So I feel like I have been very focused on this issue that feels like, and it's why I so love the comments of President Folt, because, you know, to me, I feel like on a very deep level, it was always so obvious, the connection. And so it was a great honor actually to get the Rachel Carson Award from the Audubon Society. Actually, after all those things you list, that actually was the most powerful for me, was to be recognized in that way. Because what Rachel Carson writes about just always felt so intuitively obvious to me. Like, we depend on this world. This world depends on us. And so when I first got into energy, I actually resisted it. I turned down the job to go to a utility 3 times because I honestly thought they're the problem, not the solution. Like, I don't want to go work for the problem, not the solution. And of course, you know, you don't know what you don't know. I was incredibly naive about the importance and the role that they play and how critical that role is in the transformation needed. But very quickly, from my perspective, the future of energy, the only logical conclusion I could ever come to many, many years ago is we have got to tap into the most powerful force in America and in the world to solve this problem. And it's probably the most powerful force that I have a very mixed relationship with, right? It's actually the force of consumerism. I've always thought, how do we, very early at Green Mountain, I started talking about how do we accelerate a customer-led revolution to alternative forms of energy that can save the planet. So from my perspective, that collided also with when I became the utility executive and I was out and about. I actually accepted the job after like this huge climatic event, this ice storm that even brought down transmission lines from Canada into the US. That's how powerful it was. So it also felt to me very early on, and Patty and I have shared this passion of, wow, like this system can also keep us resilient. Like, it's not just that we need to save the planet through a move to different types of alternative energies and distributed energy, but this system that we have just isn't going to be the resilient system of the future. So I have always felt like it's an all hands on deck. It's an all of the above approach. It is about moving as many sources as possible, as bulk resources, as quickly as possible to more sustainable, renewable choices. But then fundamentally, how do we drive a customer-led revolution to EVs, right? A customer-led revolution to solar and storage, a customer-led revolution towards sustainability and sustainable choices. I really feel like that is way quicker than politicians, for sure, way quicker than regulators. It is really the way to drive systematic change.
Patty.
Oh, my Lord.
I know.
To follow Mary Powell. Are you kidding me? But okay, I'll do my best. I think Mary and I had opposite journeys to the same destination. I will tell you, I grew up in the country, in rural part of Michigan where we had abundant fresh water. It was clean. There actually wasn't litter because there weren't that many people, and we were good neighbors. And I worked for a company whose chairman of the board at the time was a climate denier. And so we weren't allowed to talk about it at my company. And then I became CEO. And it was time to talk about it. But I had a lot to learn. And then actually, I was a power plant director for coal-fueled power plants, 3,000 megawatts, and those were good jobs in rural communities that supported the local tax base. I had a little bumper sticker that said, "I heart coal." I thought I'd stick it on my EV just because I thought it'd be funny, but it's not really funny, honestly. But that's where I came from. I didn't know, but then I became CEO of an energy company, and invited experts to come educate us and challenge the conversations and initiate the conversations we hadn't yet had. One of those experts was Joe Arvai. And I learned a lot. And I did a 180 and really realized the sense of urgency. And I think, Mary, to your point that a utility could be the problem, or the utility can be the fastest pathway to change. And so that's the pathway we took at CMS, and we retired 7 of our 12 coal plants, and they just announced yesterday they're going coal-free by 2025, and I'm so proud of my friends at CMS. Yeah, so proud of them. But we did it in a way that cared for the people that worked there and the local communities that those plants served. And so when I think about the future of energy, I can't abandon my good old-fashioned industrial engineering roots, where we must eliminate the waste in the system. And one thing that really excites me about the future of energy is our ability to leverage technology to balance supply and demand for the first time ever. Until now, literally, until now, energy providers were demand takers. Whatever the demand was, we had to build the whole system. Every conductor, every substation, every pole, every power plant to serve the hottest day of the year plus 15%. The whole thing was built. So much waste, so much waste. And so today, as those coal plants close, and they're closing everywhere, and as we have a choice with what to replace them. We can choose distributed resources, we can choose renewables, we can choose clean, and we can choose to optimize and manage demand so that we actually don't have to replace much of it. Here in California, I had heard about the duck curve, but now I live it. And we have excess power in the middle of the day, lots of it. It's free many days of the year. We can use that supply, store that energy with all forms of energy storage, and then deploy it when it's needed. And I find that so exciting, the technology that's going to be required. And Mary and I tell each other this all the time. All of us have to do all of it faster. There's not a she win, we win program. There's all of us win when we save the planet, and we're not doing it fast enough. And so the exciting part of leveraging technology, and that is a big part of the reason why I'm here in California, to be part of making it happen faster. And all of us doing our parts. I have a little saying, no one can do everything, but everyone can do something. And I stole that from someone famous. I just don't know who. So I can't take credit for it, but I use it all the time. No one can do everything, but everyone can do something. Everyone in this room can do something. I love that. No, whatever it was nothing is too small and no dream is too big. That we can do the small things and we can do the big things, and we all have to do all of it. It's going to be an amazing time to be in this business.
Yeah. So I'm going to agree with you fully. I mean, I think a consumer push is necessary, but I think what's really kind of buttressing that is a focus from the utilities and the companies like yours on the consumer and on the community. So the Carson Award, a huge honor, not only for your leadership, but your courage at Green Mountain. I mean, what you did there was very bold. And Patty, I remember watching videos of you in Michigan in the control room with your people as you were shutting down the coal-fired power plants, and the tears streaming down people's faces as they, were, what they had known for many years was going away. And I remember you telling me afterward that every single one of those people found other jobs in the company. There were no layoffs. So I think that kind of community-focused approach is crucial. Which brings me to my next question. And that is, if you'll let me say this, you guys, at first blush would seem like you're on opposite ends of the utility spectrum. Leader of the nation's largest solar company, leader of the nation's oldest utility, perhaps even, I think in your words, maybe the first climate bankruptcy in a major American corporation. You guys shouldn't get along. Yet here you are. So can you talk a little bit about what's at the heart of your collaboration, your cooperation, your friendship, and where you see the different perspectives you bring as coming together to create a more sustainable future for all of us?
Well, I'll go first. First of all, I've long been an admirer of Mary Powell's, and she knows that. I followed her in her role at Green Mountain Power. Our team visited Mary's team to learn, and the first deployment of distributed resources from a utility was a complete breakthrough, and it was so amazing to watch. And so I do believe that anyone can learn, even what might be perceived as adversaries. We have a big opportunity to reinvent that idea that there's a winner and a loser. Like the collective war that we are fighting is the war against climate change, not each other. Fighting for market share at the expense of faster progress to saving our planet is inappropriate. And that's what I love about Mary, is that we can look at this challenge, and though our business models don't line up perfectly, and we're trying to figure that out, how do we make them work complementary? We have a big opportunity. So I think it's the foundation of trust. And in fact, I remember hearing a story about astronauts, and that there's this thing called the overview effect that astronauts experience the first time they travel in space and they look back and they see the planet Earth for the first time. They realize there are no lines, there's no separation, boundaries, division. It's one humanity in service of one another. And I think about this battle to save that beautiful planet of ours requires no boundaries, no barriers between us.
Yeah, well said. For sure. Yeah, so from my perspective, well, first of all, I really appreciated when Patty became CEO because yes, I will say it was a lonely spot as a CEO of Green Mountain Power when I would have to go to the the utility CEO meetings, and it was such a breath of fresh air, honestly, when Patty was there, and I actually would get a smile from somebody versus a look of disdain. I mean, in all seriousness. And so I do feel like I don't want to make light of it, because I actually feel like we are in a break glass moment. We are in a break glass moment. We really are. Like, it actually get me choked. Like, I really like. And that's why I said, like, I'm here to talk about action, because we're in a break glass moment. Like, it's time to think, how do we get to breakthrough thinking? How do we get to radical collaboration? How do we accelerate solutions? And for me, it's always been obvious. And again, Patty, from so many perspectives, is a natural and easy ally for me. And it's so obvious to me how much our society has to gain from us working together. Like, it is so obvious. And that's what was so cool, actually, about leading a utility is, I resisted it because I thought, ooh, they're the problem. And then I jumped in and I was like, oh my gosh, no, like, we are the solution. We can figure out how to radically collaborate to bring solutions quicker to society to help transform and to combat climate change. So, so really, and I also honestly have never seen it. I mean, for better or for worse, I've actually never seen it as we are in a adversarial position, like even from a market share, like, oh my God, solving climate change? You guys, solving climate change, it needs all of us. Like, it's a challenge of abundance. It's a massive, abundant challenge. In fact, I really have little tolerance for, in any industry space where people start feeling like it's, well, if you win, I lose. Like, that is such limited thinking, because it is such a challenge of abundance. And by that, I mean, yes, we're actually, it's frightening to me that we're one of the world's largest solar companies. I mean, we have 4.7 gigawatts of solar. That's enough to take 2.4 million cars off the road. That's what we have. We're the nation's leader. And frankly, that frightens me, because guess what? We only have 660,000 customers. We should have 10 million to be saying that. We should have hundreds of millions at the international level, right? So, and then with that also comes I loved what you said about your experience. By the way, we should talk, because we actually do have a program, one easy monthly payment. So customers all over California can go solar really easy now. But aside from that, those customers are the first ones to buy EVs. They're the first ones to go with heat pumps. They're the ones that help lead this transformation that then gets us to, guess what? The place that Patty and I both know, which is there's actually more load. So it's not an either or. It's not about us going and solving. It's about us working together to create more valuable electrification that's fueled by clean energy. And, so I've always seen it as a problem of abundance and an abundance of solutions. And so for me, naturally, it feels like, anybody in Patty's space is for me, intellectually and emotionally, an ally. It just really helps when the person also happens to be a really good human being that wants to drive change. So I feel like we're in an amazing spot together. We both have said it's like kismet. Like, it feels like the universe that we're both where we are at this time, when the planet needs us to break glass.
Wow. You mentioned consumers and customers. Patty, I know you're very customer-centric. I want to ask you both about something that I know is really near and dear to our friends at the Center for the Political Future. Bob and Mike, who lead that, are really trying to break down barriers around partisanship. So I kind of want to go a little bit off script and ask you about customers, and this relates to some of the things that Dean Miller talked about with respect to human factors. we can make things easy for people. That doesn't mean that they're going to make the right choice all the time, the right choice that we hope they make for the climate. And secondly, it seems like climate change in particular and the things that you do in your respective companies are highly politicized now. They're partisan. It's not something that we think about. It's just, the sort of the badge we pull out. I'm on this side or I'm on that side. So my question to both of you is, and I'm a psychologist and I believe they are, so I'm going to put that out there right at the outset. But are your customers able to make the kinds of choices that we as a society are going to need to make in the name of dealing with climate change? And then secondly, with you as CEOs, both of you as CEOs, how do you address the challenge of partisanship when in a room like this, it's very easy to have this conversation, and in an equally full room with people of a different political perspective, it would be an almost impossible conversation to have?
I mean, I think Patty has the harder job in that regard, for sure. I mean, it was, I will tell you, in the work that I did at Green Mountain, again, that's what I was saying, it's not for the faint of heart. It's not for the faint of heart to break glass, to lead radical collaboration and change, is sitting in that seat. And, for me, I basically, what always helped me was my love of customers, my love of the planet, and my true belief in what I was doing, which was bringing them better solutions for their lives. That made it easy for me. I mean, honestly, Patty, like when I was CEO of Green Mountain Power, especially initially before we had all this amazing favorability and trust, et cetera, I basically had to be okay on a weekly basis with like, okay, well, if I don't have a job because I feel like I'm doing the right thing for my customers, I'm just gonna have to be comfortable with that. And I actually was. And I call myself the accidental executive because I've actually done everything in life I never thought I would do, nor I never ever wanted to do. So in a lot, and I always was an outlier from an educational perspective, a gender perspective. I grew up in a very financially insecure family. So I think feeling like an outlier helped me. Like just honestly, like, and going to those meetings, like, cause I already felt like an outlier. So I could follow my North Star, my passion and my love for our customers and our planet. On the solar side of it, it's really interesting because solar, and I remember it was actually at a utility CEO meeting, we had this, it was a Republican pollster actually presented to the whole group. And it was so powerful to me because we had already leaned into solar and storage in Vermont, but they were actually saying that it was the one energy source that actually polls positively across all political lines. So it basically has anywhere between like 85 and 95% support, whether it's independents, Republicans, Democrats. So all other energy sources, and because in Vermont we had we actually owned a part of a nuclear plant at once upon a time. We had lots of different sources, and so we'd poll on all of those in addition to that national number I got, and that always proved out. So in the context of our work, though, Joe, it's about, like, to me, like it's about loving your customers and bringing them, at the end of the day, choices so that they feel like they have a safer, more comfortable, better experience in their home. Like that, like I feel like what we're delivering to customers is really a feeling of safety and security, particularly because now we have like the highest attachment rate for storage in the country by far with our solar. So whenever possible, we like to pair it, and the feeling that that customer gets of that energy independence, that resilience. So it really is about bringing them, what again drives, in my experience, that tipping point of bringing them that feeling of really you have enriched their lives by the sources of energy that you're bringing to their home.
And I think to build on that, Mary, the customer zealousness is part of the bridge. So when we can bring solutions that are economically viable, it helps to break down those barriers. I think I have an appreciation, and I do think it's part of the benefit of the route I took to land where I am. I have an appreciation for a point of view that's different than my own. And the argument that used to be made that the economics were so bad, that we were going to chase this war on climate and price people out of energy, was a big argument against battling climate change, but that actually isn't true. And that's what's so amazing, particularly with the sort of supply demand, eliminate the waste, don't replace it all, replace less, because we can demand less without, we don't have to go back to the Jimmy Carter put on a sweater program. We actually can have the energy we want when we want it, but have a smaller system and a more resilient system. And here in California, to see the triple stack, as I like to call it, of storage in particular, but especially when combined with solar, whether it's, community scale or private solar, the stack of reducing carbon emissions from the power source. But imagine the triple stack of the value of an electric vehicle. And I get really excited about this. And I think these kinds of economic arguments can help bridge this political divide. But I think about the triple stack of EVs, that number one, they're decarbonizing transportation, the number one source of carbon here in California, stacked with the resilience when you have a bidirectionally charging vehicle. So when you have a car that can power your home, you've heard about the Ford Lightning, and Ford has a partnership with Sunrun, and we just announced also a partnership. The first 5 Ford Lightnings are going to be plugged into the PG&E grid. We're going to stack that value of resilience during a potential wildfire public safety power shutoff. Imagine your car powering your house. And in fact, that Ford F-150 can power your house for 5 to 7 days, and a Chevy Bolt can power your house 3 to 5 days. 3 to 5 days. And so when you're in a situation, for me, when I'm in the situation where I have to choose to keep people safe or keep them powered, which is the hardest decision that we make at PG&E, we're always going to choose safety. But how about no more choices, because we provide this triple stack of value, the resilience of a vehicle that's low carbon, a vehicle that can power your house. And then during flex alerts, which I will tell you, flex alerts, I don't like. I'm not happy about that program. I don't, California, we need to get out of the business of flex alerts. We should be better than that as your energy provider in Northern California. I'm working hard to get you out of the business of flex alerts. But how about having these electric vehicles provide power back to the grid on these hot summer days? So imagine, this might surprise you. It stunned me. The vehicles in PG&E's service area today, the electric vehicles driving around right now, that have already been paid for, they've already been invested in by the owner of those vehicles, is the equivalent. It's 6,600 megawatts of capacity, which, let me just put that in context for you. That's like 3 large power plants. My Diablo Canyon power plant in San Luis Obispo is 2,200 megawatts. 3 of them are driving around in my service area right now, and they only draw from the grid. They don't power the grid back. But the announcements that we've made with General Motors and with Ford in the last month at PG&E, that we're going to put the power back into the grid from those vehicles, to me, creates the kind of argument that I don't care what party you are. That's a good answer. And it's economically viable, and it creates massive value for our planet.
So we're coming up to our time. I want to get some audience questions, but I can't not ask this one. You broached the subject when you talked about fire. I don't want to talk about fire per se. I want to talk about leadership. In your role as not a new CEO, but relatively new at PG&E, you're responsible for a lot of externalities that a typical CEO of an energy utility doesn't have to deal with. And Mary, you also, coming from Green Mountain to Sunrun, have been dealing with leadership challenges. So I want to ask you what your approach to leadership is, what are the challenges you face in your current roles, and how you feel, in particular, Patty, but Mary also, if you want to address this, in being responsible for things that typically energy CEOs don't have to worry about. So the well-being of your customers, infrastructure, and so on and so forth. So maybe Patty, will start with you on this one.
Oh, Joe.
Sorry.
No, it's good. It's the hardest part. I definitely have called my pals across the country and said, you guys got it so easy. What are you complaining about? My God, come to California. And they all go, no, Patty, you do that. So look, it is heartbreaking. My very first day on the job, I drove up to Paradise. Oh, everybody, it's devastating. It's devastating. And Yeah, there's a lot I could say about the tragedy of wildfire, particularly when caused by our equipment or a tree interacting with perfectly operating equipment. The equipment anywhere else would not be a hazard. And so one day I was driving around up in Northern California and looking at these power lines through these canyons and through the fire ravaged former forests. And I thought to myself, you know, if Thomas Edison showed up in one of my substations today, he would recognize most of the stuff, but not for long. And I thought about it in that day when those power lines were originally put there. They were a pathway to prosperity for our rural communities all across this country. They created the opportunity to mechanize equipment and machines and bring opportunity to people who otherwise were literally left in the dark. And so those pathways to prosperity today are a hazard. We get to reimagine them. We actually get to do that. And that's what helps me convert it from the tragedy of the whole thing to the possibility that the call is so great and we can't move fast enough, and maybe not wireless power, but a whole lot less wires, because those bad boys are a hazard in certain conditions. We got to fix that, and we get to fix that. And so that's what's really energizing our team and what's making us so motivated to really, literally reinvent the way energy is delivered for the first time in a generation, multiple generations. It's going to be a lasting legacy that we'll be able to rest well with.
So leadership. I mean, I'm in leadership fundamentally because I love people. Like, I love people. And I love the magic that happens when you get a whole bunch of us together with all of our assets and all of our liabilities and our foibles and our strengths, and we do things that we know none of us could do on our own. Like, that is, for me, honestly, I was doing a lot of interesting work in the break, like right after I left Green Mountain Power, and the call to action for me with Sunrun was the convergence of my passion around climate change and wanting to accelerate solutions as fast as humanly possible, and my love of people. So, you know, that's always what I come back to. Like, that's always where I go for the zillion times, you know, in any leadership position. Again, if you're going to be actually having a meaningful impact. I always say, like, I actually think good leadership is actually pretty easy. I'll be blunt with you. I think great leadership is really hard. I think it's really hard because it requires a decision. And that's what I'm not saying that's what I do. I'm saying that's what I want to do, right? I wake up every day and I make a choice. Like, what does it feel like? What does it look like to actually, you know, and so for me, literally, it's like every day. My husband's like, every day. I'm like, every day. Like, every day I feel like, what am I doing today that's actually like about an impact? Like, so, you know, at Sunrun, like, there are a lot of ways to feel like you know, and again, it's a large organization, 12,000 employees all across the country, 22 states. There's a lot of just day-to-day stuff that you can get caught up in feeling like you're having an impact. And so for me, what I always come back to is that, like, how are we actually moving forward? How are we really moving forward in the context of our customer obsession, in the context of, you know, solutions to move faster? And so that's what I bring. That's my orientation around leadership, that it is a privilege and an honor. And, you know, it is my job to be focused on how to be bringing love and appreciation to the people I get to work with and I get to serve every single day.
And that sounds like a mindset shift, but also it probably requires a heavy cultural lift too within your organizations and just in you know, amongst your customers.
Huge. I mean, and I am famous for saying that line, culture eats strategy, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Like, and that's, you know, and you know, and I agree, actually, Patty I agree with the Wall Street Journal that it's one of the toughest. I don't know what those other tough ones might be, so I'll say one of the toughest CEO jobs in the country. But because fundamentally, I feel like where you need to start is culture shift. So, like, we candidly could never have done all of the things for which all of those accolades ended up being bestowed upon Green Mountain Power if fundamentally I hadn't started with radically transforming the culture, which, you know, to be blunt, like was shrinking the size, was getting rid of private offices, was working in a big open space together, like working side by side with the linemen, working side by side with the call center, having it all connected, having this customer obsessed, fast and effective kind of culture. And so that's always where I start. And it's the same things, you know, Sunrun, you know, COVID beat us all around, right? COVID was a tough couple of years. And, you know, Sunrun, we have our customer obsession challenges, we have our cultural challenges. And so that's always where I start first, because culture eats strategy. It's always, how do you make sure that you have that organization that is lean enough to be fast, and lean enough to be courageous? Because again, it's a break the glass moment, whether you're in our business, Patty's business, or anything that you all are doing. It's a break the glass moment. So in my experience, that's really where you need to start, is that culture of courage, ultimately.
I told you guys that we would stay to time, and I'm going to fulfill my promise. So I'm going to go to questions from Zoom. We'll take a question from Zoom and get a response. Then we'll open it up to the audience for just a couple of minutes, and then we'll take a break.
Thank you. Do you think our energy demands can be met without implementing nuclear on a larger scale, renewables like solar and wind?
Yeah, so the question is, can we meet our energy demand without including nuclear energy in the mix, I think is the essence of the question. You know, it's a great question, and I think there's a lot of advancement that's occurring in small modular reactors that I'm really excited about. My father was a nuclear physicist and built nuclear power plants for a living. So I grew up in a very pro-nuclear household, and I am a believer. I do think that we can transition from here, but one of the most important things that I think, so when people ask me all the time, what about Diablo Canyon? We're closing Diablo Canyon, which is a nuclear power plant. We have not fully deployed storage yet that exists. And that's why I'm so excited about bidirectional charging, because the issue that we have with demand is not every day of the year. It actually doesn't require base load solution. It requires these 5 days a year, the peak demand on a shoulder month when the sun set a little early and people still have their air conditioner on. So I like to say, you know, a big base load power plant is a sledgehammer for a problem that needs a needle. And storage and deploying storage that already is available, is driving around today for that handful of days, feels like a really viable solution. And so I think using technology, managing demand, there are some existing nuclear power plants and new ones that are being built, and I do think it's an important part of the mix, but I think we have options that we can exercise with technology.
I think you nailed it.
I love it when people do that. Yeah, you got this. It's done. I have a question that was emailed in from a student, and it's about the advice or recommendations you would give to students in the room and at our university who are interested in pursuing careers in sustainable business, which used to be an oxymoron, but now it is like kind of is de rigueur.
Advice? Go for it. Do it. I mean, yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, from my perspective, again, I think President Folt said it really well. Like years ago, it was really choosing to be an outlier. Like the good news now is it's not, but I guess I would still encourage you always act as if you are, because I really think that outliers are great agitators in the context of the kind of dramatic action that we need fast as in business and in society. And it is really easy. It's so easy for organizations or businesses to have lofty, sustainable goals, right? So I would also say, do not accept goals that are any further out than 5 or 10 years. That's that at Green Mountain, I that's what led to such transformation, because I think everybody's like, well, and the governor, like, you know, politically, oh, it'd be good to use 2030 or 2035. And we said, hell no. Hell no. we got to get carbon free by 2025. And guess what? They're there. Like, so I would say that, like, so even if you're in a business that says it has these sustainability goals and metrics, like, just be that agitator, that loving agitator. Because I think, again, when I say be an agitator, I've tried to be an agitator, but always with a smile and a laugh and a let's do this. But, you know, really push progress.
Well, and I would encourage all of you to pursue what you love and to find a place that is pursuing that too. You know, there are great companies, you know, what the first thing I want to come back to something Mary said earlier is how important culture is, and trying to find a way to assess the culture of a place before you join it. You know, is the first thing I did when I got to PG&E is redefine our purpose. And our purpose at PG&E is to deliver for our hometowns, serve our planet, and lead with love, which surprises some people about what I think they think of PG&E, but that's who we are. And that's the organization that we will be. And that is the organization that will solve these tough problems with great partners. And so I do think understanding that large companies can be incredible forces for good. Just find the right one where you can really express and have a great impact in that organization.
Would you be willing to give us 5 more minutes so we can get a question from our audience? One more question. So someone out there in the audience, there are mics floating around. Any questions out there? I see one hand. I'm always hesitant to give I see 2. Neither of them are students. I think Sevag and Steve, you're going to have to arm wrestle first. That would be entertaining. Steve, it's on you. Sevag, we'll talk after.
The way you sit, what can universities most usefully do to help?
I mean, lead the change. You know, and I've been involved with some great universities. I was a college president. We chose a college chair of the board of a college in Vermont. I've been an advisor to Lori at Middlebury College, and you know, institutions have huge opportunity with a very big microphone to lead the change. So lead the change, be the change that you want to see.
And I'd offer 2 things. 1, prepare the future leaders for us, please. And 2, I think collaborating with companies who are solving tough problems and help us help you do research in the problems that are the biggest barriers. I think sometimes it's kind of people who are trying to provide solutions today forget to signal to others what are the biggest barriers that we have so that you can invest your energy in doing the upfront research to solve the biggest barriers. So I think more collaboration with entities like ours who are on the front line. We need all the help we can get.
So Sevag is such a supporter for our institute that I can't you're not leaving until he gets to ask his question. So be good and be fast, man.
I'm super happy about the bidirectional charging thing, but what is the target date for your customers to be able to install this thing?
Yeah, well, the first Ford Lightnings are coming this year. They're in production as we speak. And I have to put a great shout out to my friends at General Motors. I spent the first 15 years of my career at GM, and so I have lots of friends there, and Mary Barra and I go way back. And when I took this job, I called her because when she took over at General Motors as the CEO, they had just gone through bankruptcy. They had a big airbag crisis. She was having to testify on Capitol Hill. I thought she might know a thing or 2. So I called her and I said, okay, Mary, what's your advice? And she said, well, I'll tell you what Warren Buffett told me. I'm like, well, okay, I'm tuned in. But so she said, make it right and do it fast. So that's a big mantra for us, make it right and make it safe. And we're doing that as fast as we can. But the other thing she said is call me if you have anything we can do to help. So about 6 months ago, I called her and I'll never forget it. I was sitting outside. I rushed out of a conference room and I hopped on a call with her and I said, Mary, here's the deal. We have these things called public safety power shutoffs. It's really awful. We turn off the power, but we have to keep people safe. I need 15,000 off-lease Chevy Bolts that can power the houses. What can you do? She said, we're on it. And literally that day, her team and our team started working together, and we worked together every day since. And they have figured out, and I in fact met the engineers who did this as a passion project on their regular, outside of their regular job, to figure out how to actually just reprogram Chevy bolts. So Chevy bolts today can be, it's a software fix, can be reprogrammed. And most of the new vehicles being produced by General Motors today are bidirectional enabled. So the real trick is the device. And Mary and her partners have been working on this. So we're pretty excited about that. Being able to plug the vehicle into the home is the next hurdle. And we're getting ready to cross it.
Yeah, no, and we have a huge partnership with Ford on the F-150. We actually developed with them that bidirectional inverter. So we are already co-marketing and rolling out trucks. So as Patty said, that starts in actually about a month. So trucks will be rolling off, and it was really important to the CEO Ford that there was a cross sell, so that they weren't just about bringing the Ford Lightning, but they wanted as many customers as possible to also go solar, which I thought was really, really powerful. So we already have quite a lead list of customers that not only will we be installing that bidirectional charger, as Patty said, but also being able to have them go solar at the same time. So it's, and a lot of those customers, they also do still want storage in their homes, because again, you know, especially with multi-day, I mean, I went through a multi-day outage when I lived in LA, right, with one of the public service cutoffs. And, you know, and it was nice to have solar storage and an EV. So I actually could do all of the above. I didn't need to actually use my EV to back up the house. I could actually drive it, right? And you had that amazing resilience. So wherever possible, we're going to be doing the whole home transformation with the transformation of the transportation.
Thank you.
So I'll say honestly, the best part of my job is working with my team, everyone that works in the Wrigley Institute, all the way on up to the dean's office and everyone in between. This is a remarkable place to be. The second best part of my job, and it's a very close second, is to talk to leaders and visionaries like you. So thank you very much for joining us. Mary Powell, Patty Poppe, we wish you the best. We need you.